Welcome. Hey, folks. The gateway to the weekend is now officially swinging open. On today's show, we talk all things NBA and Toronto Raptors with Randy Urban, who helps us put a bow on the season. Also, thanks to audiobooks and podcasts, we have access to literary arcs like never before. A new podcast hosted by actor Hugh Bonneville is bringing the tales of Sherlock Holmes to life. Greg David, he joins us to talk about his latest podcast addiction. I wonder how Holmes would have deduced basketball.
This is Kelly and Company.
Hanging out with you here, Kelly MacDonald. Thank you for being with us on the program. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Kelly & Co. AMI. And looky here, speaking of basketball, a fan, Brock Richardson, joining us on our Friday edition. Good day, sir.
Good day.
So are you all set for a little sports talk a little later?
Yes, I appreciate sports talk when I come on. I think we have had sports talk the last couple of times I've been on, which I appreciate.
I know you appreciate sports talk. You also appreciate Family Feud Canada talk. Has there been a new passion lately, like outside of sports, Family Feud Canada? Is there some new discovery?
Politics, I guess you could say. I've been a little more into politics over the last, say, 6-7 weeks, so that's been of its own soap opera in and of itself. But yeah.
Oh my good heavens! I am a little surprised on that one. I really didn't think that would be the answer you'd give. I know you've been monitoring more. I'm assuming Greg David, who joins us now, has been doing a similar thing. Greg, you've been kind of on the edge of the seat with all the stuff going on, or have you always been a political analyst?
Political analyst? No, not at all. And actually, I was off camera when Brock said politics, and I just kind of pursed my lips and blew the air out of my mouth because I'm like, oh man, that's such a hot button topic for everybody right now. And it was funny. I was on the Elections Canada website because they've kind of filled up my X/Twitter feed with information where you can go to their website and find out more information, obviously about voting. And they've got a whole section that's been devoted to debunking the myths. And I know that I'm paraphrasing, but there's myth that political parties pay to win an election, and then the box next to it says fact. Actually, this is not true at all. This is how the voting process works. So it's kind of interesting that particularly in the political climate that we're in right now, that Elections Canada has to put myth and truth a whole section devoted to myths and truths on their website to just dispel kind of that negativity that's out there. And then of course, if you click on the X post, you see all the comments below that said, "Oh, when you stop accepting money for the Liberals, I'll start voting again." And it's like, all right, I'm done. I can't read anything more about politics.
Yeah, you've been seeing that too on CBC, eh, Brock? They almost do a checker now on CBC News World about, especially since there's so much disinformation and that going around.
Yeah, but there was that whole thing recently on the conservative side where they had to turn off fact checking because he complained about it, which is interesting in and of itself. And of course, the conservatives have had their challenges with the CBC being public funded and all that. It's just a whole bunch of drama, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I feel, Greg, looking at the fabric of Canada, we lost the CBC if it was defunded. A problem. English CBC, by the way.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. If it was defunded, Brock bringing up the fact checker at CTV, the fact that, I know you talked about this earlier in the week, Kelly, that journalism programs at colleges and universities across the country are being cut. I mean, so where are we supposed to get our trustworthy news from? My buddy that lives down the road from me that's on Facebook posting things, like, where am I supposed to get all that factual information from? I'm not getting it from that guy, especially if he's a few drinks in. So it's really disappointing and actually really scary when you think about the future of news and information.
Well, even when you talk Elections Canada posting all that information, the first thing you think about is, yeah, but what else are you supposed to tell us? That it's safe, of course, to vote, that will be discreet, that everything will be straight up and honest as it can be and run properly when you have countries logging in and breaking in? I know that's the world we're in. Greg, there was a different kind of world, but I'm sure they had exactly the same kinds of corruptions and concerns, if not more, when it came to elections. Greg David, folks, is here with his latest podcast addiction, Sherlock Holmes short stories, which brings the adventures of Detective Sherlock Holmes to life with the, of course, award-winning actor who actually narrates and voices this so well, award-winning Hugh Bonneville. Greg, for those who don't know, tell us a little bit about the history of Sherlock Holmes and his creator, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a note that this podcast came out over the Christmas holidays from the BBC, and it was designed to kind of fill that void in the holidays when you maybe you weren't at work and you wanted some time away from your family, so you could listen to Sherlock Holmes short stories. So that's how I came upon it, was finding out about it through some of the other podcast feeds that I listen to. But yeah, so Sherlock Holmes is a fictional detective created by British author Arthur Conan Doyle, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and he's been referred to, or Sherlock Holmes refers to himself as a consulting detective in those stories. And Holmes is known for his proficiency with observation, deduction, and forensic science, as well as logical reasoning that borders on the fantastic. He's a bit of a superhero in the detective world when it comes to how he can solve his crimes. And he works for a variety of clients, including Scotland Yard. And the character of Sherlock Holmes first appeared in print in 1887 in the short story A Study in Scarlet, and its popularity became more widespread in the first series of short stories that were posted in the Strand magazine, which began with the story A Scandal in Bohemia in 1891, and other additional tales have appeared from then on until 1927, totaling 4 novels and 56 short stories. And like you said, Kelly, a bunch of these short stories are being narrated by the actor Hugh Bonneville in the Sherlock Holmes short stories podcast. So a little bit of audiobook mixed in with the whole podcast world, which I find really interesting.
I love it because a lot of those are kind of produced, whether it be by a network like the BBC or other broadcasters. Sometimes you have different people doing them that kind of take you by surprise. Almost it's like a side gig they would like to do. They show interest and someone says, yeah, let's produce that. And some of those are just tremendous. I've heard a few of them. Brock, now, have you preferred, when it comes to detectives, not sure you're a detective fan, the detective who thinks, who deduces, who kind of figures out things with the brain power, or that muscular, take on any tough guy kind of private detective? What image do you find more interesting, more engaging?
It's the attention to detail, like Sherlock Holmes is giving in the short narration stories that we're talking about, that really have me, and the details that they're giving in the podcast really help sort of sell the story. And as we mentioned, Hugh is kind of that perfect narrator that fits the story of how it's being told for Sherlock. So I really like the way this is done.
Greg, yourself, I've always found, I know years ago, I like that detective that could kick the door in, pointing their gun like a Mike Hammer style, Spencer for Hire. However, as I've gotten older, and even as a kid, I shouldn't say that because I was always a huge Nero Wolfe fan. Sherlock Holmes, read most of the books in one form or another, heard most of their old time radio shows and some of the newer stuff that was created, and enjoy. But I know I have an attention span thing with it, even though I find the deduction stuff, and right off the top of this first episode, The Speckled Band, we really hear some deduction from as his guest arrives at Baker Street to have a chat with him.
Yeah, and it's interesting. This is supposed to be only a 16-part series, and the latest episode just downloaded for me today, and it's episode 19. So clearly they've gone beyond what the original plan was. But yeah, you mentioned the attention span, and what I like is that each of these episodes is only 25 to 30 minutes in length, so it's perfect kind of bite-sized podcast length for people. And each short story is broken up into 2 or 3 parts. So you're getting it. You kind of get left with the cliffhanger, and then you tune in the next week or download the next episode the following week. And it is very much a combination of the traditional podcast with audiobook, but also the immersive experience of those old time radio plays. You hear the horse hooves clip-clopping on cobblestones. You do hear kind of background yelling. When there's action going on, Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That really adds that dimension to the performance that Hugh Bonneville is doing, and he is speaking on behalf of Watson in these stories, who's always telling the tale of his involvement working with Sherlock Holmes, and Hugh Bonneville does alter his voice a little bit to fill in the different characters, whether they be victims, witnesses, people from Scotland Yard. So really, really great and immersive experience that, like I said off the top, you can get in 25 to 30 minutes each.
I think, Greg, my love for these have been the descriptions of the areas you mentioned, the moors, London at the time, the gas lamps and stuff like that.
Yeah, me too. And this is actually the first time that I've actually consumed any Arthur Conan Doyle, any Sherlock Holmes stories. When I was growing up, it was all about Stephen King short stories or H.P. Lovecraft or Edgar Allan Poe. So this is the first time that I'm experiencing any of Arthur Conan Doyle's stories, and I'm loving them. I'm really, really liking it. And usually what happens with my podcast is that I'll be having them on in the background while I'm doing something else. But I find with the Sherlock Holmes short stories, I actually sit down, close my eyes, and listen to the story because I really enjoy being pulled into that world, and I want to be able to focus on it and not have it so much on in the background, but in the forefront.
Okay,
but Greg,
Brock.
it gives you that sort of ability to do that, like to sit there and think about it, because there's things that are referred to like the dense darkness, the crumbling manor house. Like he gives you that specifics about what he's talking about, so it's very, very simple to envision, because he's leading you in that way of like, this is what I want you to think about: the dense darkness, the crumbling manor house. Like, it's very easy to do that.
And the description of London at the time.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think that that's one of my favorite things too, is the in-depth description, and I think that shows the writing style of Doyle and how good he was, that when you're reading that or listening to it, that description is coming through. It's just fantastic. And I did want to note that this is a lot better to listen to this podcast through headphones, because then you are picking up on all of that subtle background stuff that you wouldn't necessarily, I don't think, necessarily pick up on if you were listening through a speaker system in a room.
You almost forget that this is written back then. I mean, a lot of stuff we read now, you look for that description because the writer wants to paint the picture of London at the time, since none of us have been there. But you forget that this is written of the time. This is that city. This is like a today writer writing about Philadelphia or Toronto, and giving you that depiction of the streetcar tracks in downtown Toronto, the scent, the whatever it might be. But you're getting this very observant writer writing about his observant star of the books, hero in the books, and everywhere around to give you such a snapshot of the time. I don't know, Greg. I love that kind of thing personally. I think even as a kid that made me fascinated, which warped me into the old time radio show fascination, because you were getting the snapshot of July 1943 in the case of old radio shows.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's part of the fun, is giving those details, because there are those small details that Doyle gives so that you, the reader or the listener, can kind of start to put those clues together and figure it out for yourself. So it's very, very important to have those subtle details mentioned. But again, like you said, it's all about building that atmosphere, and which makes the books, the short stories, and the podcast so wonderful.
Thanks, Greg. Appreciate it. Really bringing something for us to get into, listening to these Sherlock Holmes stories. And I'm glad you've discovered, because I know when I was a kid in school, they thrust all this on us. So take it easy, sir. We'll talk in a couple of weeks.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot.
Greg David with us, talking about the Sherlock Holmes stories that are available right now. And folks, he will join us again in a couple of weeks to talk TV. Brock, do you pick up on a lot of those extra details? Some people I know that I'm not interested in all that extra stuff. Come on, get to the story.
Yeah, no, I did. And like, I've listened to the first episode of the short story, and I was enthralled in it, specifically because of the extra noises and the things that you go, oh, that's kind of in the background. So yeah, for me, I was all about that.
Yeah, me too. I really love that picture in my mind, as Greg said, closing the eyes. I've always had the fascination, which then makes you turn around and check out about how long have they had gas lamps. And of course, we've got our smart speaker buddies to ask all sorts of questions like that. Email us at kellyco@ami.ca. Give us a call, 1-866-509-4545.
Randy Urban is the host for the Raptors and NBA 360. He's generously back again with a recap of the NBA season and our favorite, or not, the Toronto Raptors. Welcome back, Randy. Nice to have you aboard.
Thanks for having me on, fellas. I love coming on the show. I appreciate you inviting me, as usual.
What the heck? This guy's dressed up, I'm told. He's got a suit on. What's going on? Did somebody invite you to a wedding?
Well, I coach basketball at a school in Toronto, so I'm at the school here today doing a little bit of supply work.
Oh, nice. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Dress up for the
youth.
Good heavens. Especially any that go play ball or anything like that. Okay. All right, Brock, I'll let you carry on. Let's put him to work on our show.
All right. Well, since you're in a suit and tie, we'll start with the Toronto Raptors. What were your impressions of the Raptors this season? Give us a sum up of how you think they did.
Well, it was not the season I think that everybody was hoping from the start. It didn't begin the way they wanted. Quickly was injured. Scotty was injured for a while. It just didn't go their direction. They were 8-31 to start. A lot of people in and out of the lineup. I think at the beginning of the season, it was them and the Pelicans that just had the most man games lost due to injury. And so when you get off to that kind of a start, your focus starts to change about, what the season is going to look like the rest of the way. And so knowing that the next draft was going to be a really good one with Cooper Flagg going to be number one. I think the shift kind of the focus kind of shifted to, all right, let's develop our young guys here. Let's not rush our players back from injury and let's see what happens. The one thing I think fans are kind of upset at is that they just didn't lose enough after going 8-31 to start. And, when you really think about it, it's a blessing to not lose that much in a way, because look, there was no way you were going to lose more than Utah. It just wasn't going to happen. No. There was no way you were going to lose more than the Pelicans. There was no way you were going to lose more than Washington. And there was no way you're going to lose more than Charlotte. So you're looking at the 5th worst record at that point. So what do? The Raptors start playing all their guys. And one thing that this franchise has their guys doing is playing hard. Coach Darko has this team playing together, no matter if it's a guy from a 10-day contract, if it's a guy on a 2-way, or it's a guy at the end of the bench. They're all getting minutes now. And what have they been doing? They've been winning. They're 20-17 since the 8-31 start. So and that's not having, their complete lineup. Brandon Ingram, who they traded for at the deadline, has not played a single minute. So now what you have is you're going to get the 7th worst record instead of the 5th. And then you're going to have this world of experience from all your end of the bench guys. So you hit the ground running next year. Look, there's no guarantees that at 5th worst pick, you're going to get number 1. There's no guarantees if you have the 7th worst pick, you're going to get number 1. So I say develop your guys and get a pick and then see what happens. This is a playoff team next year. Sorry, I went on a rant there, but
that's all right.
This is not as bad as what people are saying.
No, I love watching what the work we're seeing. We're seeing such dedication. We want to get into next year with Brandon Ingram and everything. We know that one person wouldn't make enough of a difference in my head anyway. Added, yes, you definitely want to be up there in that top 10 picking from it. Cooper Flagg, let's talk about this guy from Duke. Who does he remind you of? Just kind of a quick notes on him.
Ooh, that's a great question. I'd have to really think about who he reminds me of right now. I can't think of anybody off the top of my head. He's just an amalgamation of a bunch of guys. He's got a little bit of Luka in him with the way he can handle the ball and distribute. He's got some Scotty in him, the way at 6'9", being able to do a bunch of different things. Look, this is the best basketball player that I've seen at the collegiate level in a long time. Guys, he just turned 18 in December. For part of the season, he was 17 years old. He led Duke in points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks. And the one thing that he needed to work on was his shooting. Well, he's been a 40% three-point shooter for most of the season, especially in the second half. His free throw shooting has gone up. This is this is by far and away the best pick in the draft. Well, probably since Wemby, which wasn't that long ago. But Cooper Flagg, one thing about him is he's a competitor. Right now, he could be the best defender on your NBA team at 18 years old. That's how good he is at defense. And offensively, he can do everything. He can finish with his left as easy as he can finish with his right. He can break you down. He can run the break. He does everything perfectly.
Yeah.
I'm a coach.
He's
guys,
strong.
And
He's strong.
He is strong. He is strong.
Already.
This kid is going to change the franchise. So whoever gets him, they got to thank their lucky stars. And you know what else? One thing I'll say, he is the hardest worker. When your best player is your hardest worker, you've got something to build on.
Okay, good. That's amazing. All right, let's go back to Raps.
I'm on a rant here today.
Oh,
Sorry,
that's fine. That's what the suit does for you, man. It's like Superman changing it. We'll look forward to next season. What has you excited or concerned about the Raps?
What has me excited is you have a guy, Brandon Ingram, coming in. You're gonna get a good draft pick. So I'm not sure what that looks like. If that's VJ Edgecombe, if that's maybe you luck out and you get Cooper Flagg, maybe you get Malawach, the big center from Duke. All of those guys will be able to help immediately. And then you've added Brandon Ingram to an already potent lineup, scoring the basketball with Scotty, Quickly, RJ Barrett, Hurdle, Grady Dick. Who knows if he's gonna now come off the bench. I'm excited to see the Raptors having a guy. It is hard to get talent in this league, and Brandon Ingram is a talent. And when I say a talent, I mean somebody that can get to a spot no matter what and get a shot. And he can do that. So to have that type of potency on your offensive end with a guy like Scotty that can share the ball, that excites me. Now, one thing I'm a little concerned about is defensively, you're going to have to be better when you got so many offensive-minded players. And I think what you're seeing now is a team that's turned the corner defensively. So if you can continue that mindset with the group that you will have next year, man, this is a playoff team for sure.
Yeah.
I like that for sure. We all want to see the Raptors get back to the playoffs at least. Let's talk about someone else who has great talent on the court, but sometimes makes questionable decisions off the court. I'm talking about John Morant. Your thoughts on that? Is it going to be time that he's probably going to be suspended for his actions with guns, his motions with guns? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, when he did the sort of the gun gesture to the Warriors bench the other day, he was, was probed by the league, and they just gave him and Buddy Hield warnings about that. They weren't violent in nature, they said, but they were, inappropriate, disrespectful. Now, every time I see a guy make a three, they're doing some sort of gun gesture. So either the NBA needs to get rid of them all, or they can't just pick on Ja. Having said that, why is he doing that at this point? He's been suspended multiple times, and he got a warning. And what does he do the next game? He does it again. That is where I'm starting to question, okay, your decision-making at this point. This is one of the most talented players in the NBA. This guy could very easily be the face of this league. When I look at the guys that come into the Raptors arena, there's a few guys that fill the stadium at 6:30 when you're allowed to go in like an hour and a half, hour before the game to watch the warm-ups. John Morant brings in that crowd, and Steph Curry brings in that crowd, and LeBron James brings in that crowd. Those three players are the only three players that really bring this like pre-game crowd during the pre-game, workouts that these guys do. So John Morant has this ability to bring all types of fans to the league. And unfortunately, the league is looking at him going, man, I don't know if we can market him the way we want to market him just because of the decisions that he makes. There's
right.
There's no, he's one of the most electrifying players in the NBA. And it's a real shame that it's kind of turning out this way, because he used to be my favorite player. Like, I was like,
me too.
My new favorite player, John Morant. He's doing things on a basketball court I've never seen. And now he's just messing it up, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, when you look at, they're sixth right now. you don't have to do anything involved with a play-in, but everybody's breathing down their neck, and if he gets suspended, they could fall to where they're 8th or something else that is just not great, and put in a position to get involved in a play-in, and that just kind of makes you shake your head at the season. And how do you tell somebody, look, you got to stop, just, hey, this is just who I am, deal with me? Well, the league's going to have to.
And Taylor Jenkins, and Taylor Jenkins gets fired. It's not like Taylor Jenkins just forgot how to coach. So you just wonder, like, what is going on behind the scenes there? You're right, Kelly. If that team, the Clippers are breathing down their neck in that 7th spot, the Timberwolves are breathing down their neck in that in the 8th spot. If Memphis goes and loses 2 more games in a row, they're in that play-in. They might not even make the playoffs at that point. Yeah, that would be a huge disappointment.
Yeah, and like, how do you feel as an athlete knowing that you're going to cost your team that? Like, I can't understand that with such a talent on the court, but it can be so tarnished based on the decisions you make. Okay, let's talk quickly about positives. What's the coolest thing from this year that stands out to you as a cool moment that you can highlight?
That's a great question. I think seeing the Cavs kind of put it together. There was a lot of talk about breaking up that team, whether Donovan Mitchell didn't want to be there. Does it work with having 2 bigs? And what does Donovan Mitchell do? He signs on an extension in the offseason. And, I didn't like that they fired their coach and hired another one because I thought they were good enough. But seeing the Cleveland Cavaliers' success shows me that there is some value in keeping your team together. Rather than just like getting this guy next year and this guy the year after that and kind of just like putting together this jigsaw puzzle, the Cavs have been more or less the same piece in terms of their core over the last 3 or 4 years, and you're just adding little bits to it. So I think that familiarity has shown again to the NBA that keeping your team together and growing together is still the best way to build a championship. Look, the Raptors wouldn't have won that championship in 2019 with Kawhi if Kawhi wasn't there. But if Kawhi came to a different team, a team that didn't have those pieces together for that long before that, then they wouldn't have won either. So, you need the combination of the guy that can get it done, and you need this cohesion from a team that's been together for a long period of time.
Man,
it just shows you that it really does take a village to put a team together. And you're right, you can have that one player, but you got to take those extra pieces that come off the bench to give them a little bit of a blow. That's
right. And the one thing I did like the other day was the owner of the Detroit Pistons writing I don't know if you guys saw this. He was basically saying, we are behind our team 100%. He wrote a little thing for social media because the Pistons have been in the news lately about being the bad boy Pistons again, getting into the fights and all that kind of stuff. And Tom Gore was like, this is our team, and we stand by them, and they embody Detroit. So I think that was kind of cool to have an owner come up and say that.
Yeah, I know Detroit tries to chase away that image. Randy, I always want to say thank you to making time for us. We really appreciate all the time you've ever given the show and coming on, and we enjoy having you. And today, dressing right up for the part, a little like making Brock and I look bad. Thank you, pal.
Yeah. All right. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me on. See you next time.
Thanks, pal.
That was Randy Urban, host of NBA 360, joining us to give a synopsis of the season as a whole and the Toronto Raptors.
We appreciate Randy and so many of the people that make the time to come out like that and fitting into a schedule, and he has a tight one today. Brock, thank you for being with me on this Friday. We'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.
We will indeed, yep.
Remember to check out our podcast from your platform of choice and give us a rating and review while you're there. Also, our YouTube page, subscribe, and enjoy the content. On our next show, be honest. How organized is your online life? From cleaning inboxes to keeping track of calendars, Michael Babcock joins us with tips, tools, and tricks on managing and maintaining our very busy virtual lives. Have a great weekend now. Get out of here, will ya?
Thanks for tuning in to Kelly & Company. Follow us on all social media, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more.